The robotic voice from the steel gate was sterile, absolute. Resident access code required. It blocked the dirt road, a polished knife in a rustic wound. Before I could process the violation, the whine of a golf cart cut through the pines. A woman in designer sunglasses and a razor-sharp glare skidded to a halt on the other side. "You are trespassing on private property," she declared, her voice a weapon of pure ownership. I simply rolled down my window, the calm before the storm. "I'm Marcus Brennan. This is my land." I didn't need to shout. I just held up my property deed, the paper my grandfather signed decades before this woman ever existed. Her face, that smug, entitled mask, shattered. It didn't just show surprise. It flashed with raw, gut-level terror. She knew the name. She recognized the deed. She knew her perfect crime was over. "Call the police," I said, my voice quiet and steady. "I'll wait." But as she fumbled with her phone, my eyes locked onto the final, damning detail. A shiny new master lock, chaining my past to her fraudulent present. She thought she was protecting her stolen kingdom. She had no idea she'd just locked a combat engineer inside with her. The paper bullet, she called the sheriff, but when the deputy arrived, his weary sigh told me this wasn't his first time at this gate. I handed him my deed. She presented a printed community bylaw sheet. The paper felt cheap, the ink smudged. The deputy ran a hand over his face. "Ma'am, this isn't a legal document. This is a homeowners association rule, and it doesn't supersede a property deed." Her facade cracked, her smile tight as a wire. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said, but her eyes screamed calculation. The deputy made her open the gate, and as I drove through to my cabin for the first time in 3 years, the victory felt hollow. Because waiting in my mailbox, tucked between junk flyers, was a certified letter from Willowbrook Estates Management. It wasn't an apology. It was a bill for $3,600 in accumulated community assessments. The war wasn't over. She had just changed her weapon from a gate to paperwork, and her first shot was a shakedown. How do you fight a phantom HOA that doesn't legally exist? The answer I found in the county courthouse basement was so audacious, it was almost genius. Chapter 3. The courthouse ghost. The courthouse smelled of dust and decayed dreams. I spent days buried in plat maps and property records, and her web of lies began to unravel. There was no filed paperwork for Willowbrook Estates. No HOA formation documents with the state. She had literally invented her authority, printing official-looking letterhead for a corporation that existed only in her mind. But the real ghost was the road itself. A bored county clerk, after some pressure, admitted the road reclassification from public to private community entrance was processed based on her application alone, missing the legally required public notice period. She hadn't broken down a door. She'd slipped through a bureaucratic crack. But why? The motive was still a shadow. I found the key not in a property file, but in a divorce case index. And the reason she needed my land so desperately wasn't about power. It was about pure financial survival. Subscribe to this channel to see how this ends. We're just getting started. Chapter 4. The financial time bomb. Her divorce file was a confession. The settlement stipulated she had to maintain her property value above $400,000 to keep receiving $3,200 a month in alimony. Chapter 5. The social media IED. I woke to a Facebook notification. She'd created the Willowbrook Estates Community Watch group. The top post was a grainy, edited video from her security camera, making my calm approach to the gate look like an aggressive charge. The caption read, "Urgent safety alert. Unstable veteran with combat training threatening peaceful families. Police have been notified. Avoid at all costs." The comments were a torrent of fake concern and horror from accounts I'd never seen. My phone buzzed with a call from my old commanding officer. She had contacted the base, claiming I had severe PTSD and was making violent threats. She wasn't just stealing my land. She was trying to destroy my future, using the very stigma I'd fought against as a weapon. But she made one fatal mistake in her smear campaign. She underestimated the loyalty of real neighbors and the fury of a JAG lawyer. Chapter 6. The Allied Front. Captain Rodriguez from JAG was livid. "We do not tolerate false reports about our soldiers," he said, his voice cold steel. Meanwhile, I knocked on doors with my grandmother's chocolate chip cookies. The truth poured out. My elderly neighbor, Gladys, handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a contract where Deardra had tried to buy my property from probate court for $15,000. telling them I was dead. Mike from the bait shop showed me records of his business plummeting 40% since her gate went up. The community wasn't on her side. They were terrified into silence. We held a meeting in Mike's back room, the smell of minnows and determination thick in the air. We were no longer individual victims. We were a coalition. And our first collective move was to drain the financial lifeblood of her entire operation. The battle is turning. Don't miss the moment the trap is sprung. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Chapter 7. The revenue raid. We collectively filed a complaint with the state revenue department. Operating an unlicensed property management business is a $10,000 fine per violation. She'd been collecting fees from 7 families for over 2 years. The math was catastrophic for her. 7 families x 24 months equals 168 violations. Potential fines, $1.68 million. The state agent who showed up at her door wasn't a local deputy. He was a state-level enforcer with the power to seize assets. Simultaneously, my attorney neighbor, Sarah, filed a quiet title action, forcing a judge to legally confirm my ownership and obliterate all her fraudulent claims in one stroke. She was being attacked on 2 fronts, and the walls were closing in, which is exactly why she escalated to a level of insanity I never saw coming. She hired a private investigator to frame me. Chapter 8. The Sting the PI was a sleazy character in a beat-up Honda, but he had a line he wouldn't cross. He met me at a diner, the smell of stale coffee between us, and confessed that she had asked him to plant a bag of marijuana on my property and photograph it as evidence of criminal activity. When he refused, she threatened not to pay him. He gave me a recorded confession. This was no longer just civil fraud. This was criminal conspiracy to file a false police report and plant evidence. I now had evidence of her attempting to commit a felony. I walked out of that diner with the one thing that could put her behind bars. But she had one last, scorched earth play, and it involved selling my land out from under me to a developer from the cities. Chapter 9. The blueprint for theft through a contact in the title company. I discovered she had approached a developer with exclusive development rights to my soon-to-be-available lakefront property. She had created full-color architectural renderings, subdividing my 40 acres into tiny lots for McMansions. She was selling a fantasy built on my grandfather's grave. The developer, smelling blood in the water, had already started the permit process. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't just trying to steal it. She was already spending the theoretical money. This moved the timeline up. We had to act now, before her web of lies entangled an innocent third party and created a legal nightmare. It was time to stop collecting evidence and time to unleash it all in a public forum where she could hide. Chapter 10. The County Commission Showdown. The monthly County Commission meeting was packed. She arrived with her cheap lawyer, dressed for a performance. She stood and gave her speech about the dangerous veteran. But the commissioners' faces were stone. Then it was my turn. I didn't speak to her. I spoke to the room. I held up my deed. I played the PI's recording. I presented the fake bylaws, the developer's renderings, and her divorce financials. I connected every dot. She isn't a community leader, I said, my voice echoing in the silent room. She is a con artist facing foreclosure, and every one of you in this room was either her victim or her target. The sheriff's deputy stepped forward and served her with a warrant for fraud investigation on the spot. Watching her being read her rights, I realized the gate was just the beginning. The real victory was in the community we rebuilt from her ashes. The ending is more satisfying than you can imagine. Subscribe now to see it first. Chapter 11. The Reckoning and the Rebirth. She pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. The restitution orders and fines bankrupted her. The McMansion was foreclosed on. The county crew arrived with heavy machinery and tore out her gate, the sound of grinding metal a symphony of justice. But the real story wasn't her downfall. It was our community's rebirth. We formed a legitimate, transparent road co-op. Mike's bait shop business boomed. And on my grandfather's restored porch, with Sarah by my side, I started Operation Homecoming, a nonprofit that provides legal aid to deployed soldiers facing property theft. We've helped dozens of families protect their homes. My personal war ended, but a much bigger mission had begun. But just when I thought it was over, a new case landed on my desk, one with an 1800s mining rights clause that could topple an entire city council. Chapter 12. The Call to Arms. So that's my story. From a locked gate to a locked cell. It proves that David can still beat Goliath, but only if he knows how to fight smarter. Check your property records. Know your rights. And if you're facing your own Deardra, you're not alone. Drop your HOA horror stories in the comments below. I read every one and feature the best in our legal education materials. Smash that like button if you believe in standing your ground, and hit subscribe for our next series, The Eminent Domain Gambit, where we take on a corrupt city council trying to seize a veteran's farm. The American dream is worth fighting for, one property deed at a time.